The glass doors of the Sapphire Crown Hotel in downtown Chicago parted with a soft hiss, letting in a gust of cool evening air, and Lena Washington, who stepped onto the polished marble floor with the kind of quiet confidence that came from years of building an empire from nothing, her sneakers making barely a whisper against the opulent gleam of the lobby, where crystal chandeliers dangled like frozen raindrops, casting prisms of light across velvet armchairs, arranged in intimate clusters, and the faint hum of classical music, perhaps a subtle Mozart piece, wrapping the entire space in an aura of refined elegance that was meant to welcome the elite top, but often served as a barrier to those who didn't fit the mold. And Lena, a black woman in her late 32nd with sharp eyes that had seen too many doors closed in her face, wore a simple gray hoodie pulled over her head just enough to shield her from the judgmental glances she anticipated, paired with fitted jeans that hugged her frame comfortably, and carried nothing but a sleek phone in one pocket and a black credit card in the other, her presence not demanding attention but earning it nonetheless. As she scanned the room with the quiet assessment of someone who owned it all, yet chose to walk in anonymity to test the waters of her own creation, approaching the front desk, where Victor Klein, the hotel manager at 50 years old, with a pressed suit that screamed authority and slicked-back hair graying at the temples, stood like a self-appointed gatekeeper, whose eyes narrowed instinctively as she neared, flanked by two clerks. Mia Chen, 28, with a nervous smile that twitched at the corners but never quite reached her eyes, which darted around as if seeking approval, and Derek Holt, 32, leaning casually against the counter with a smirk that telegraphed his preconceived notions before he even spoke a word, and Lena said evenly, her voice steady like a calm sea before a storm, "I have a reservation, presidential suite, name's Washington." But Victor's head tilted slightly, his gaze traveling slowly from her hoodie down to her sneakers, in a way that felt like an interrogation rather than a welcome, repeating with a voice loud enough to turn a few heads in the lobby, "The presidential suite? That's a high-end booking? You sure you're at the right hotel?" As if the words were laced with doubt designed to make her question her own place. And Lena didn't flinch, didn't raise her voice or show any sign of the frustration bubbling beneath her composed exterior. Instead, sliding her ID and black credit card across the cold granite counter with a deliberate motion, watching as Victor picked them up with just the tips of his fingers, holding the card aloft like it might contaminate him if he gripped it fully, muttering under his breath but audible enough for her to hear, "This looks questionable." While Mia glanced at Derek, who gave a subtle nod of agreement, her hand pressing a button on the desk as her voice crackled over the intercom system that echoed through the vast lobby. "Security, we have a potential issue at the front desk. Possible fraudulent guest." And the lobby stirred like a pot beginning to boil. A young couple named Amara and Jalen pausing near the lounge area with their suitcases still in hand from their recent arrival. Their phones already out as Amara whispered to Jalen, "This isn't right. Look at how they're treating her." And started recording discreetly at first, but then more openly, capturing the scene on her device while Jalen began a live stream, his voice steady and narrating softly. "We're watching something messed up go down at the Sapphire Crown in Chicago as a businessman named Mr." Patel looked up from his laptop at a nearby table, his brow furrowing in discomfort at the unfolding drama, and Lena's expression remained calm, her voice dropping to a low register that carried weight without volume. "I'm here for my room. Not trouble." But Derek snorted derisively, leaning forward with his smirk widening into something almost predatory. "People try this all the time. Fake cards, fake names, thinking they can sneak into a place like this. We always catch them," his words dripping with condescension that hung in the air like smoke, and Amara's camera caught every syllable, every facial twitch, as she narrated softly into her phone, posting the clip almost immediately with a caption that read, "This is wrong, Sapphire Crown, Chicago." While Jalen's live stream began to gain traction, the viewer count ticking up slowly at first but steadily, comments starting to trickle in from strangers online who were drawn to the raw injustice unfolding in real time, and across the room at her station, Sofia Alvarez, a junior concierge with wide eyes and a uniform that still felt new on her shoulders, glanced up from her desk where she was organizing brochures, her gaze meeting Lena's for a fleeting moment that carried a spark of recognition or perhaps unease at the familiarity of the scenario, taking a tentative step forward as if to intervene but halted by Victor's sharp glance that shot across the space like a warning shot, his voice snapping harshly, "She doesn't belong here." The words carrying across the marble floor and bouncing off the walls, embedding themselves in the ears of everyone present, and Lena's fingers moved swiftly over her phone, tapping out a quick message to her assistant Carla Reed that simply read, "It's happening. Prep the system." Her mind flashing briefly to the countless times she'd prepared for moments like this, knowing that preparation was her armor in a world that often saw her as a threat rather than a leader, while Victor held her card up higher now, flipping it back and forth as if expecting it to reveal some hidden flaw under the lobby's bright lights, saying louder this time to ensure the growing audience heard, "We've seen this scam before. People walk in, flash a fancy card, claim a big suite, then vanish when we call the bank." His tone laced with a theatrical flair meant to justify his actions, handing the card over to Derek with a nod. "Lock it up?" And Derek moved with exaggerated care that bordered on mockery, opening a small safe behind the desk with a key that jangled loudly, placing Lena's card inside as if it were evidence in a crime scene, and slamming the door shut with a resounding clang that echoed like a final judgment, declaring triumphantly, "You're done," his grin splitting his face in a way that made Sofia clench her fist subtly at her side, and Amara's voice rose in indignation. They just took her card. As she stepped a bit closer, her phone steady, while Jalen moved forward too, his stream now at 500 viewers with comments like, "This is racial profiling," and "Call corporate," pouring in, declaring boldly, "That's not policy, that's theft." And Lena didn't move an inch, her stance rooted like an ancient tree in a storm, her voice emerging as steel wrapped in velvet. "You'll regret this," the words not a threat but a promise born from experience, her thoughts drifting back to when she was 25, walking into a hotel in Dallas after a grueling flight, dressed in comfortable sweats with a confirmed booking in hand, only to have the clerk look her up and down with undisguised skepticism and say flatly, "This isn't a budget motel," claiming her reservation was mysteriously lost, and sending her away into the night where she ended up sleeping in a rental car, the humiliation fueling her resolve to one day create a chain where no one would feel that sting, vowing silently to build something better, something unbreakable. And now, standing in a lobby she herself owned under the banner of Pinnacle Properties, she faced the same judgment, the same dismissive tone, the same insidious attempt to erase her presence as if she were an intruder in her own domain. Victor leaning forward with his elbows on the counter, his face inches from hers in a display of intimidation, declaring, "Your reservation's cancelled. We don't tolerate fraud. You're holding up real guests," his emphasis on real hanging like a noose in the air. And Lena's eyes flicked subtly to Amara and Jalen, who were still filming, their devices capturing the growing tension, replying coolly, "You mean the ones watching this right now?" As other guests began to stop in their tracks, some whispering among themselves in hushed tones of discomfort or outrage, a few pulling out their own phones to record or take photos, Sofia's jaw tightening visibly as she wrestled with the urge to speak up, Mia stepping in with her voice sharp and dripping with false confidence. "Leave now, or we'll call the police," her words meant to escalate but only serving to highlight the absurdity, and Lena held her gaze without blinking, asking softly but firmly, "Are you sure?" The question laden with layers of implication that Mia couldn't yet grasp, Victor smirking as if he still held all the cards literally and figuratively, replying smugly, "Go ahead. Make a scene. It won't end well for you," his arrogance peaking in that moment, and Lena's voice rose just enough to carry through the lobby without shouting, declaring, That's the last time you speak to me like that." The statement landing like a gauntlet thrown, Sophia finally finding her voice and stepping forward despite the risk, saying, "I saw her name in the system this morning. The reservation's real," her tone laced with a mix of fear and conviction, Victor turning on her sharply with eyes like daggers, snapping, "One more word, and you're out too," his threat hanging heavy, but only serving to embolden the room's shifting energy. Lena tapping her phone again with deliberate presses, saying into the device, "Carla, log this, timestamps, video, all of it." Carla's voice coming through clearly on the other end. "Logged, ready when you are," the exchange subtle but powerful. Jalen pointing directly at the safe with his camera zoomed in, exclaiming, "That card says Washington, VIP, it's real," Victor scoffing dismissively. "Anyone can fake a card, people like her." But Lena interrupted sharply, her voice cutting through like a blade. "Finish that sentence, challenging him to reveal the bias that everyone could already sense," and he didn't. The words dying in his throat, as he noticed the growing circle of eyes fixed on him, the lobby's atmosphere thickening with unspoken accusations. Lena stepping forward now with calm, but every syllable carrying the weight of inevitability, saying, "You just made the worst mistake of your career." Victor smiling still, but it was forced, clinging to his fading power, replying, "You think so?" And Lena staring through him with unyielding certainty, "I know so." The lobby tightening around them like a noose of tension drawn by the collective breath of witnesses, Victor and his team oblivious to the storm they had unleashed, having no idea who she truly was or the reckoning that was mere moments away, the air charged with anticipation as guests like Mr. Patel shifted uncomfortably in their seats, murmuring to each other about the injustice unfolding before them. Amara's video gaining more shares by the second, her captions sparking debates online about hospitality and hidden prejudices, Jalen's livestream comments exploding with support for Lena and calls for boycotts if the hotel didn't act. Sophia standing a bit taller now, her silence breaking into quiet solidarity as she positioned herself slightly closer to Lena. The businessman Mr. Patel finally standing up from his table, his laptop forgotten, and saying aloud, "This isn't how you treat people. I've stayed here before and seen similar things. It's not right," his voice adding to the chorus of dissent that was building, a mother with her child nearby pulling her phone out and starting to record as well, whispering to her kid, "We have to stand up when something's wrong." The lobby transforming from a place of luxury into a stage for social confrontation, Victor's confidence cracking just a hair as he glanced around at the phones pointed his way, realizing too late that his actions were being broadcast to the world, Mia's nervousness turning to visible anxiety as she fidgeted with her hands, Derek's smirk fading into a look of uncertainty as he second-guessed his eagerness to lock away the card, and Lena, at the center of it all, her hoodie still up but her presence commanding the room more than any suit ever could, her mind racing through the protocols she had set up for exactly this scenario, knowing that in just a few minutes the tables would turn irrevocably, the safe behind the desk holding her card like a hostage but soon to be opened, the intercom's earlier call for security now hanging like an ironic echo as no guards arrived yet, perhaps delayed or perhaps sensing the shift in power, guests beginning to form a loose semicircle around the desk, not aggressively but protectively, as if instinctively shielding Lena from further harassment, one elderly gentleman in a corner nodding in agreement with Mr. Patel's statement, adding his own quiet comment, "I've traveled the world, and this is shameful." The classical music in the background seeming almost mocking now against the backdrop of real human drama, Lena's phone vibrating with incoming messages from Carla, updates on the system readiness and perhaps even early alerts from social media about the viral video. But she didn't check them yet, focusing instead on the moment, on Victor's eyes that were starting to show the first glimmers of doubt, on Mia's trembling hands, on Derek's averted gaze, the lobby's chandeliers casting long shadows that danced across the marble like fingers pointing accusations. And in that charged silence between words, the tension built to a crescendo, everyone waiting for the next move. Unaware that Lena held the key to unraveling it all, her backstory weaving through her thoughts like threads in a tapestry. The nights spent studying business plans in cramped apartments, the rejections from investors who couldn't see past her skin color, the triumphs of opening her first property and expanding to dozens more, all leading to this test of her own creation. A test that Victor and his team were failing spectacularly, Sophia whispering to herself under her breath. This has to stop. Her resolve hardening as she prepared to speak again, the young couple Amara and Jalen exchanging glances of determination, their devices steady, capturing history in the making. Mr. Patel crossing his arms and standing firm, a silent ally in the growing resistance, and Lena, with a deep breath, prepared to drop the veil of anonymity, knowing that when she did, the lobby would never be the same, the air thick with the scent of impending justice, the cool evening breeze from the doors, a reminder that change was blowing in, unstoppable and fierce. Victor Klein's voice boomed across the Sapphire Crown's lobby like a thunderclap meant to shatter the growing unrest. Desperate to reclaim the narrative that was slipping from his grasp as he barked with a mix of fury and fear, "Throw her out!" His face flushed a deep crimson that matched the velvet accents on the armchairs scattered around the marble expanse. His suit jacket straining at the seams as he leaned aggressively over the granite counter, the polished surface reflecting his distorted image back at him like a mocking mirror. But the guests didn't scatter or comply. Instead, holding their ground with phones raised high, capturing every bead of sweat forming on his brow, every twitch of his unraveling composure that betrayed the cracks in his once impenetrable facade of authority. Amara's video now exploding into virality across platforms like X and Instagram, reposted by influencers and everyday users alike, with hashtags such as #Sapphire Crown Scandal and #Justice in the Lobby, gaining traction by the minute, Jalen's live stream surging past 2,000 viewers in real time, the chat window, a torrent of outraged comments flooding in like a digital wave. "This is disgusting! Fire them now!" Racial profiling at its worst. "Boycott this place if they don't act," each message amplifying the pressure that was building in the opulent space where crystal chandeliers swayed ever so slightly from the collective energy. And Lena Washington stood unmoved at the epicenter, her gray hoodie and jeans, a symbol of understated defiance against the lobby's gilded grandeur that screamed exclusivity, her posture straight and unyielding like a pillar holding up the invisible weight of generations of overlooked indignities, bringing her phone to her ear with a deliberate calm that contrasted sharply with Victor's escalating panic. Saying into the device, "Carla, patch Marcus in now," her words precise and laced with the quiet authority of someone who had orchestrated boardroom takeovers and multi-million-dollar deals from behind the scenes, Victor scoffing dismissively but with a hint of unease creeping into his tone. "Calling for backup won't help you here. You're trespassing on private property." His attempt at intimidation falling flat as Mia, emboldened by her manager's lead, yet showing signs of doubt in her widening eyes, stepped out from behind the desk with a straightened posture, her uniform crisp but her movements hesitant as she reached for Lena's arm in a bold grab that crossed the line from verbal harassment to physical confrontation, hissing through clenched teeth. "Let's go. You've been warned one too many times." The lobby erupting in a chorus of gasps that echoed off the high ceilings like a collective intake of breath, Amara shouting indignantly from her vantage point near the lounge. She just grabbed her. "This is assault." Her phone steady as she captured the exact moment, zooming in on Mia's hand making contact. Jalen's stream skyrocketing to 3,000 viewers almost instantly with the chat exploding in real-time fury. "Call the cops on them. This hotel is done. Share this everywhere." Sofia Alvarez, the junior concierge who had been hovering on the periphery with a growing sense of moral conflict etched on her young face, finally stepping between them with her voice shaking but resolute, a tremor of restrained outrage underscoring her words as she declared, "You can't touch a guest like that, her reservation is valid." I checked it myself. Mia spinning on her heels with eyes flashing like daggers, spitting back, "Stay out of this if you value your job, Sophia. This doesn't concern you." But Sophia didn't back down an inch, her stance firming as she replied defiantly, "Then fire me right here. But this is wrong and you know it. I won't stand by anymore." The exchange drawing more guests into the fray, Mr. Patel rising from his seat with a dignified slowness, his laptop closed and forgotten as he crossed his arms and added his voice to the mix. "I was overcharged here last month for a suite upgrade I never requested, and no one followed up on my complaint. Is this how you treat all your guests or just the ones who don't fit your narrow idea of luxury?" His question hanging in the air like an accusation that pierced the veneer of the hotel's polished image, Victor surging forward with frustration boiling over into visible tremors, his finger jabbing the air as he barked at Sophia. "Do you even know who she is, really? She's a fraud. Look at her clothes. Her attitude. People who book presidential suites don't look like that. They don't act like this." His gesture sweeping disdainfully over Lena's casual attire as if it were irrefutable evidence of her unworthiness, the words, "people like that," unspoken but implied in every syllable. Lena's voice cutting through the chaos like a sharpened blade, low and measured to command attention without raising volume. "You keep throwing around that word fraud like it'll magically make your mistake disappear, but you're the ones committing theft right in front of witnesses, taking a single step closer that closed the gap between them. The distance shrinking like a noose, tightening around Victor's crumbling narrative of control, her mind flashing to a memory at 29 when she had checked into a Miami hotel for a pivotal industry conference, dressed in a professional blazer and slacks that should have screamed competence, only to have the clerk demand 3 forms of ID with a skeptical glare, making her wait an excruciating hour while verifying her card as if it were a counterfeit bill, all while a white couple in casual beachwear received their keys in mere minutes without a second glance, that injustice burning in her chest that night as she drafted the foundational policy for Pinnacle Properties. Equal treatment for every guest. No exceptions, no assumptions based on appearance, a policy now being flagrantly violated in the very empire she had built from those ashes. "Get security here now." Victor snapped at Derek, who had stepped back slightly, his earlier smirk replaced by a flicker of uncertainty as he hesitated, the confidence draining from his face, because in front of him stood not a desperate intruder, but a woman who exuded a quiet power he couldn't quite place. The crowd turning palpably against them as guests like the woman with the stroller nodded in agreement with Mr. Patel, adding her own story softly but audibly. "They lost my booking last year during a family trip, blamed it on me, and slapped me with a cancellation fee I had to fight for months to get refunded," her words weaving into a tapestry of shared grievances that exposed the underbelly of the hotel's operations. Lena calmly turning her phone toward the growing assembly of onlookers, asking in a voice that invited participation, "Would anyone else like to share proof of how this place really operates?" Jalen immediately calling out from his live stream position, "Show them everything. We're with you." But Lena didn't pull out a badge or flash a contract in dramatic fashion. Instead, she turned to Sophia with a soft but probing question. "Do you see my name in the reservation system, with the details attached?" Sophia nodding vigorously as she glanced at her terminal. "Yes. It's under Washington, for the presidential suite, checked in remotely with a founder's override tag that only top executives can access." The lobby falling into a hushed quiet as the implications sank in, Victor's eyes darting wildly now, blurting out defensively. That could be faked. She could have hacked the system somehow. But Amara snapped back from the side, her camera panning to capture his flailing. "You really believe someone walked in off the street, hacked your secure network, and conveniently brought a crowd of witnesses along for the ride?" Mia suddenly paling as the reality hit, looking down at the floor in avoidance, while Derek stepped forward hesitantly, his voice cracking slightly. "I locked the card in the safe under your orders, Victor, but what if we're wrong about this?" Lena turning toward him with unflinching eyes. You weren't just following orders. You chose to steal from me, to mock me. And that choice has consequences. Derek's mouth opening and then shutting again without a retort, the crowd shifting subtly as guests began to position themselves in a loose half-circle around Lena. Not aggressively but protectively, an older woman with a floral scarf moving forward to stand between Lena and Mia, stating simply, "You're not laying another hand on her," followed by a man in a business suit joining, then the woman with the stroller, within seconds forming a human barrier that spoke volumes about the turning tide. Victor standing behind the desk now looking diminished, his once commanding presence shrinking under the weight of collective scrutiny, Lena looking around at the impromptu shield that had risen without her prompting, saying softly but with resonance, "This is what happens when people refuse to stay silent in the face of wrong." Jalen turning his phone to capture the scene, narrating into the camera, "They're standing with her now. The guests are protecting her, and I don't think anyone's backing down." Victor's desperation peaking as he shouted over the murmurs, "You're all being manipulated by her act. She's playing you for sympathy." But then Derek, still holding the intercom microphone from earlier, whispered something under his breath that accidentally broadcast through the speakers, echoing across the lobby, "She owns the place, doesn't she?" The words hanging in the air like a confession extracted under duress, Amara slowly panning her phone toward Lena's face with breathless anticipation, asking, "Do you?" And Sophia stepping forward boldly now, her voice clear, "She does. She's the CEO." Gasps rippling through the room like waves on a disturbed pond. A man near the lounge chairs whispering to his companion, "This is her hotel, the whole chain." Mia turning to Victor in horror. Her whisper sharp, "You said she was lying. You assured us." Victor speechless for the first time, his mouth working but no sound emerging. Jalen looking directly into his lens with wide eyes. This is the moment everything flipped. Lena stepping forward again, past Sophia, past the protective half-circle of guests, right up to the front desk where Victor stood frozen like a statue of his former self, saying evenly without a trace of gloating, "You wanted me out? You framed me as a thief? You humiliated me in my own lobby, and now you'll face what that costs." Victor finally finding his voice, but it was ragged, pleading almost. "Why didn't you say who you were from the start? You set us up for this." Lena blinking once, her response cold and unyielding. "No. I gave you every chance to treat me like any other guest. That was the real test, and you failed it spectacularly in front of the world." That was when Carla's voice returned over the phone, now on speaker for all to hear, crisp and professional. "Lena, the board's authorized full incident response. Marcus is ready for your next steps." Lena scanning the stunned faces around her, every phone still recording, every guest bearing witness to the shift, replying firmly, "Patch him through right now." Marcus Tate's voice filling the air, sharp and deliberate like a legal hammer. "Lena, everything's prepared. We're standing by for authorization." Lena taking a steady breath, her eyes never leaving Victor's. "Terminate Victor Klein, terminate Mia Chen, terminate Derek Holt, immediate removal from the Pinnacle system, freeze their access credentials, and log this incident for a full legal audit." A beat of profound silence following, broken only by Marcus confirming, "Processed and confirmed." And in that instant, Victor's access badge buzzed with a red light flashing ominously. Mia's following suit, Derek's as well, locking them out in real time before the eyes of the entire lobby. No dramatic outbursts needed. Just quiet, complete, and irreversible justice unfolding like a well-planned strategy. The guests erupting into a murmur of approval, some clapping sporadically as the weight of the moment sank in. Lena turning to Sophia with a nod of recognition. "Please unlock the safe and retrieve my card." Sophia moving efficiently behind the desk, entering her code with steady hands, opening the door to hand back the black card, untouched and pristine, her eyes meeting Lena's with a glassy emotion that spoke of shared triumph, the room's energy shifting from tension to a tentative celebration as one guest called out, "That's how you handle bias," another adding, "About time someone in charge actually listened." Lena addressing the crowd directly now, her voice carrying with the poise of a leader forged in fire. "This wasn't just about me today. It's about every guest who's ever been made to feel unwelcome, every complaint swept under the rug, every policy twisted to exclude rather than include that ends right here." Victor, Mia, and Derek, standing stripped of their roles, their power evaporated like mist under sunlight, the consequences only beginning to dawn on them as security now summoned by Sophia arrived not to escort Lena, but to guide the former staff out, the lobby watching in silence as they walked the walk of disgrace through the glass doors. The cool Chicago air swallowing them whole, Lena turning back to the remaining guests with resolve etched in her features. "If any of you have experienced mistreatment here, our team will address it personally. No excuses, no delays," the promise hanging as a beacon of change. Amara lowering her phone slightly with a smile, saying to Jalen, "We witnessed history." The live stream still rolling as viewers cheered virtually, the Sapphire Crown's lobby transformed from a site of conflict to one of empowerment, Lena's revelation not just a turn of events but a pivot toward a new era where respect wasn't earned by appearance but assumed as a right, the chandeliers above seeming brighter now, the marble floor feeling firmer underfoot, as the ripple of this moment began to spread beyond the walls, setting the stage for reforms that would reshape Pinnacle Properties from the ground up, guests lingering not in fear but in solidarity, sharing stories among themselves, the elderly woman with the floral scarf approaching Lena to say quietly, "Thank you for not walking away. You've given us all a voice." Lena nodding gently, "I've walked away too many times before, but not anymore. Not when it matters most." The air buzzing with the hum of phones notifying shares and likes, the viral storm gaining momentum, Marcus's voice coming through again. "Media's picking up the footage already. Your statement's ready if you want to go public," Lena considering for a moment before replying, "Let it spread. Let the truth speak for itself first." The lobby settling into a new rhythm, Sophia taking charge behind the desk with a newfound confidence, directing staff to assist waiting guests. The woman with the stroller checking in smoothly. "Now, Mr. Patel reopening his laptop with a satisfied nod, Amara and Jalen ending their stream with a final message. "Change starts with standing up. Thanks for watching." The viewer count frozen at over 5,000, a testament to the power of collective witness, and Lena stepping back slightly to observe, her hoodie still a symbol of the everyday strength that had toppled arrogance, knowing that this turn was just the beginning of a larger transformation. The safe now empty, the intercom silent, the glass doors closed on the past, opening to a future where every entry was met with equity. The Sapphire Crown Hotel stood resplendent under the ever-changing Chicago skyline, its towering glass facade catching the golden hues of a setting sun that painted the city in warm tones, reflecting not just the urban hustle below, but a profound internal metamorphosis that had taken root in the weeks following the lobby upheaval, the marble floors within still gleaming with the same polished elegance that had always defined the space, yet now infused with an intangible lightness, an openness that transformed the atmosphere from one of guarded luxury to genuine inclusivity, where the crystal chandeliers no longer loomed as symbols of exclusion but twinkled like stars guiding all comers, and a newly installed plaque near the front desk, etched in understated gold lettering against a backdrop of dark wood, read simply, "Respect is the foundation of hospitality," serving as both a mantra and a memorial to the day everything shifted. Behind the counter presiding over this renewed domain was Sophia Alvarez, elevated from her junior concierge role to permanent guest relations manager, her smile radiating a warmth that was authentic and hard-earned as she greeted a diverse family checking in for a weekend getaway, her uniform now adorned with a subtle badge of authority that she wore not as a shield but as a commitment to the changes she had helped ignite, the hotel's operations humming with a fresh efficiency born from Lena Washington's sweeping reforms that had rippled outward like concentric waves from a stone dropped in still water. Lena herself walking through the lobby in a tailored blazer that blended professionalism with approachability. Her presence quieter and more reflective than the explosive day she had turned the space upside down, spending those intervening weeks not in triumphant repose, but in tireless oversight of Pinnacle Properties' comprehensive overhaul, an internal audit delving deep into the company's archives like archaeologists uncovering hidden artifacts, revealing a tangled web of institutionalized bias that extended far beyond Victor Klein's individual actions, linking back to a former regional director named Edward Voss whose quiet directives had encouraged subtle guest profiling under the guise of protecting the brand's image, emails and memos surfacing like ghosts from the past, showing patterns of dismissed complaints, fabricated resolutions that papered over real grievances, and a pervasive culture of silence that had allowed such practices to fester unchecked for years, Lena absorbing these findings not with shock but with a steely determination that fueled her decision to sever ties with Voss's lingering network of allies, firing those who had enabled the rot and launching Pinnacle Open, a bold diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative designed not as window dressing but with tangible teeth, measurable quotas for staff training completion, independent guest feedback panels empowered to influence policy, and a zero-tolerance enforcement mechanism backed by anonymous reporting apps, accessible via QR codes, scattered throughout every property, Sophia implementing these changes at the Sapphire Crown with a precision that reflected her own growth, mandating biased training sessions led by external experts who used interactive simulations to dismantle unconscious prejudices, the hotel's booking system fully reset to purge any reservations flagged under Victor's tainted staff ID, with affected guests receiving personalized apologies via email and complimentary stays at Pinnacle's affiliated locations across the city. The viral videos from Amara and Jalen continuing to echo in the digital ether, their footage sparking a nationwide dialogue on hospitality's hidden undercurrents of discrimination, with number Pinnacle Open trending on social media platforms, where users shared their own stories of mistreatment in hotels, from subtle snubs to outright denials of service, drawing attention from industry analysts and civil rights organizations alike who praised Lena's proactive stance as a model for corporate accountability. Amara and Jalen finding themselves thrust into the spotlight as inadvertent activists, invited as guests of honor to the reopened lobby where they stood amidst the familiar marble and chandeliers, now symbols of renewal, receiving keys to a complimentary suite from Lena herself, who thanked them personally with a firm handshake and sincere gaze, saying, "You didn't just capture a moment. You gave us a mirror to see our flaws clearly, and for that, we won't ever look away again." The pair later speaking at a Pinnacle-hosted summit, where industry leaders gathered in a sleek conference room overlooking the lake, Amara recounting how their spontaneous decision to record had empowered others to speak up, emphasizing, "We didn't set out to start a movement. We just couldn't stomach the silence in that lobby," while Jalen highlighted the role of real-time sharing in forcing transparency, their words resonating with attendees who nodded in agreement, sparking commitments from other chains to review their own policies, guests from that fateful day receiving handwritten letters from Lena sealed with the Pinnacle seal, each one personalized with phrases like, "You stood as a witness when it mattered most, and that solidarity changed everything." Mr. Patel framing his letter in his home office as a reminder of the power of speaking out, vowing in a follow-up email to Lena that he would only patronize Pinnacle Properties moving forward, the woman with the stroller launching a personal blog chronicling her family's travels with a keen eye on equitable treatment in service industries, her posts gaining a modest but dedicated following that amplified the conversation further, Lena's personal journey resurfacing in her quiet reflections during late-night strategy sessions, recalling how at 19 she had been unceremoniously turned away from an Atlanta hotel lobby while waiting for friends, told curtly that the area is for guests only. Despite her explanations, the sting of that dismissal lingering like a scar that motivated her entrepreneurial path, or at 27, when a New York clerk questioned her credit card's validity until she produced redundant proofs of identity, those experiences not breaking her spirit, but sharpening it into the tool that built Pinnacle from a single property into a network of 42 locations. Yet even her success hadn't insulated the company from internal flaws, now addressed head-on through the audit's unearthing of buried complaints that led to reinstatements of wrongly dismissed employees and compensatory settlements for those affected. Lena assembling a dedicated task force of legal experts and HR specialists to trace every falsified resolution, ensuring no loose ends remained, with new managers across the chain undergoing rigorous accountability orientation programs that simulated real-world scenarios to root out potential biases before they took hold. Then came the pivotal confession that added a layer of gravity to the reforms. A retired manager from Pinnacle's Miami outpost reaching out via a discreet email, his message heavy with remorse as he admitted, "Voss didn't just overlook issues. He instructed us to deprioritize certain guests if they didn't match the profile. It wasn't documented, but the expectation was clear." Lena responding not with recrimination but gratitude for his candor, forwarding the admission to her legal team where it became the cornerstone of broader investigations, revealing that the Sapphire Crown incident was symptomatic of a systemic ailment rather than an isolated fever, prompting former employees from distant branches to come forward with similar tales in a cascade of truth-telling that fortified the Pinnacle Open framework, the task force evolving into a permanent fixture to periodically re-interview staff and audit records, ensuring that silence was no longer rewarded and honesty no longer penalized. Lena's legacy evolving in the public eye from that of a discreet billionaire architect of hospitality empires to a celebrated reformer who graced magazine covers and podcast interviews, not seeking the limelight but embracing it to advocate for change, launching a new division within Pinnacle dubbed Horizon Forward Wait, No, sticking to Pinnacle Open as the banner for ongoing efforts focused on measurable outcomes like annual diversity reports and partnerships with advocacy groups under its inaugural acts, Sophia being named National Advisor for Frontline Guest Experiences, her insights from the lobby floor informing training modules that emphasized empathy over assumption, and at the close of the summit where Amara and Jalen spoke, Lena taking the stage amid applause that filled the room like thunder, her voice steady and resonant as she declared, "Hospitality doesn't begin with the smile you offer. It begins with the respect you assume from the moment a door opens." The audience rising to their feet in a standing ovation not for a CEO's platitudes but for a woman who had once been pushed toward the exit only to turn and widen the entrance for all, the Sapphire Crown becoming a pilgrimage site of sorts for those inspired by the story, guests arriving not just for stays but to see the plaque, to experience the transformed service where solo travelers in casual wear were upgraded without question. Families of all backgrounds received personalized welcomes, and business professionals like Mr. Patel found their preferences anticipated rather than interrogated. Sophia mentoring a new crop of concierges in her office, adorned with a framed photo of Lena from that day, not as idolization but as a touchstone for courage in action, the lobby's classical music now interspersed with subtle announcements about feedback channels, the glass doors parting for entrance with a welcoming hiss that symbolized barriers dissolved, Lena standing one evening on the rooftop terrace overlooking the twinkling city lights, reflecting on how one lobby standoff had cascaded into industry-wide waves, her phone buzzing with updates from the task force on the latest audit findings, replying with directives to deepen investigations where needed, the elderly woman with the floral scarf returning for a stay and sharing tea with Sophia, recounting how the event had inspired her to volunteer at local shelters, teaching etiquette and self-advocacy, the viral momentum sustaining itself through user-generated content where Number Pinnacle Open became a hub for sharing positive changes in other sectors. Lena addressing a national hospitality conference via video link, urging peers to assume respect, not privilege. In every interaction, her words quoted in articles that positioned Pinnacle as a benchmark for ethical business, the reforms extending to supplier contracts favoring diverse vendors and community outreach programs in underserved neighborhoods, ensuring the company's growth was intertwined with social good. Sophia hosting monthly town halls in the lobby where guests and staff alike could voice ideas, turning the space into a forum for continuous improvement. The mother with the stroller returning with her family, delighted by the new play areas and inclusive amenities. Mr. Patel recommending the hotel in his professional networks, Amara and Jalen collaborating on a short documentary about the incident, premiering at a film festival to acclaim, Lena quietly funding scholarships for aspiring hospitality students from marginalized backgrounds. Her actions speaking louder than any speech, the Sapphire Crown's occupancy rates soaring not despite the scandal but because of the transparent handling, proving that accountability breeds loyalty, the plaque's words echoing in every greeting, every resolved query, the chandeliers witnessing a new chapter where luxury was democratized, the marble floors bearing the footsteps of a more equitable future, Lena closing her eyes against the evening breeze, whispering to herself, "This isn't the end. It's the blueprint for what comes next." The city below pulsing with life, the hotel standing as a beacon of what happens when one voice, amplified by many, dismantles the old to build anew, the glass facade reflecting not just lights but possibilities unbounded.